What if I told you that some of the most productive food crops you could possibly grow require almost zero annual replanting, no tilling, and will feed you for decades? Crops that your great-grandparents grew without thinking twice, that fed entire communities through harsh winters, that produced massive harvests year after year with a fraction of the work you're putting into that vegetable garden right now. Most people don't know this, but while we're all out there replanting tomatoes and lettuce every single spring, breaking our backs with annual gardens, there are crops out there that you plant once and harvest for 20, 30, even 50 years. Crops with actual track records of outproducing traditional gardens with half the effort. And today, I'm going to show you 20 of them that will change the way you think about growing food forever. Stick around, because number 14 on this list can produce fruit for over a century after you plant it, and it thrives on neglect. And number 20 is so vigorous that your biggest problem won't be getting it to grow. It'll be keeping it from taking over your entire property. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we post new videos every week that'll save you money, reduce your workload, and help you build a truly productive homestead. So let's get into it. Here are 20 productive crops that grow like fruit trees, ranked from impressive to absolutely game-changing. Number 1, hardy kiwi, the fence line food factory. Let's start with hardy kiwi, and this one alone could convince you to rethink your entire approach to fruit production. Actinidia arguta is a perennial vine that can absolutely crank out buckets of grape-sized kiwis every single year once it's established. We're talking about a vine that can produce 50 to 100 pounds of fruit annually from a single plant. Hardy kiwi is not the fuzzy tropical kiwi you buy at the store. These are smooth-skinned, pop-in-your-mouth fruits that taste even better than their commercial cousins. The vines are incredibly cold-hardy, surviving temperatures down to minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and they grow fast. Within 3 to 5 years of planting, you'll have a mature vine pumping out fruit. Here's what makes hardy kiwi special. Once established, these vines require minimal care. They're not picky about soil. They resist most pests and diseases, and they'll keep producing for 50 years or more. You need both male and female plants for pollination, but one male can pollinate up to 8 females. Modern research shows these fruits are packed with vitamin C, even more than oranges. You train hardy kiwi on a sturdy fence, trellis, or arbor. The vines are vigorous growers that can cover 15 to 20 feet, so give them space and strong support. Harvest happens in fall, and the fruits store for weeks in the refrigerator. The reason hardy kiwi isn't more common is simple. Most people have never heard of it. Nurseries push the same old apples and pears, but for anyone wanting serious fruit production without serious work, hardy kiwi is waiting. Think of it as the crop that turns your fence into a fruit factory that runs for half a century. Mayhaw, the southern jelly goldmine. Mayhaw might be the ultimate forgotten fruit tree. Crataegus estivalis is a small tree native to the American South that produces heavy crops of tart, berry-sized fruits, perfect for jelly and syrup. And when I say heavy crops, I mean a mature tree can produce 20 to 30 gallons of fruit in a single season. Mayhaw trees thrive in wet conditions where other fruit trees struggle. They grow in swampy areas, along streams, or in low-lying ground that stays moist. The white spring blossoms are beautiful, and by May, hence the name, the branches are loaded with red or orange fruits that look like tiny crab apples. These fruits make the finest jelly in the South, with a unique tart sweet flavor that can't be replicated. Here's what makes Mayhaw special. These trees are incredibly long-lived and disease-resistant. Plant one, and it'll be feeding your great-grandchildren. They require almost no care once established, tolerate poor drainage, and produce reliably year after year. Traditional Southerners would harvest mayhaws by spreading sheets under the trees and shaking the branches, collecting gallons in minutes. Modern cultivars have been developed for larger fruits and heavier yields, but even wild mayhaws are productive. You can make jelly, syrup, wine, or even mayhaw sauce. The trees stay relatively small, 15 to 25 feet, making harvest manageable. Mayhaw disappeared from common cultivation simply because commercial fruit production focused on crops that shipped well. But for backyard production and preserving, Mayhaw is unbeatable. It's the tree that turns wet, useless ground into a jelly-making operation that lasts for generations. Number 3. Serviceberry, the multi-season producer. Serviceberry, also called Saskatoon, is one of those plants that does everything right. Amelanchier species are small trees or large shrubs that produce sweet, blueberry-like berries, stunning spring flowers, beautiful fall color, and they're cold hardy enough to grow in Zone 2. Talk about a complete package. The berries ripen in early summer, usually June, and they're genuinely delicious, sweet with a slight almond flavor. A mature serviceberry can produce 10 to 20 pounds of fruit per plant, and they bear reliably year after year. Native Americans harvested these berries extensively, drying them for winter use and mixing them into pemmican. Here's what makes serviceberry a winner. They're adaptable to various soils, tolerate partial shade, resist deer browsing better than many fruits, and require minimal pruning or care. They also handle cold like champions. These plants laugh at harsh winters. The white spring flowers are gorgeous, making serviceberry valuable as both food and ornamental. You can plant serviceberry as individual trees, in hedgerows, or as understory plants beneath taller trees. They produce best in full sun, but will still fruit in part shade. The berries are excellent fresh, in pies, jams, or dried. Birds love them too, so you might need netting if you want the full harvest. Serviceberry got overlooked simply because blueberries became the commercial standard. But for homestead production, especially in cold climates, serviceberry offers reliability that blueberries can't match. Think of it as the fruit that decided it would be beautiful, productive, and bomb-proof all at once. Cornelian cherry dogwood, the ancient survivor. This is where we get into the really tough, long-lived crops. Cornelian cherry dogwood, Cornus mass, is a small tree that's been cultivated in Europe and Asia for thousands of years. It produces tart, cherry-like fruits that are excellent for preserves, syrups, and traditional Eastern European dishes. And the tree itself is virtually indestructible. Cornelian cherry blooms incredibly early. Bright yellow flowers appear in late winter, sometimes while snow is still on the ground. By late summer, the tree is covered with oblong red fruits that look like elongated cherries. They're too tart for most people to eat fresh, but cooked with sugar, they make spectacular preserves and fruit leather. Here's what makes this tree remarkable. It's extremely hardy to Zone 4, tolerates drought once established, resists all common pests and diseases, and lives for well over 100 years. These trees produce for decades with zero inputs. Traditional uses included drying the fruits, making compotes, fermenting them into beverages, and even pickling them. The tree stays small, 15 to 25 feet, with attractive bark and good fall color. It's one of the first plants to bloom and one of the last to fruit, extending your harvest season. Modern cultivars have been selected for larger fruits and better flavor, but even wild types are productive. Cornelian cherry disappeared in North America simply because we didn't inherit the cultural knowledge of how to use it. But for anyone wanting a genuinely permanent, productive tree that requires zero care, it's the tree that was already ancient when your ancestors were young and will still be producing when you're gone. Number 5. Jujube, the drought champion. Now we're talking about a fruit tree that actually thrives on neglect. Jujube, Ziziphus jujuba, is a drought-tough tree that produces sweet, date-like fruits and actually prefers dry conditions and poor soil. This is the tree for challenging climates and lazy gardeners, and I mean that as the highest compliment. Jujube has been cultivated in China for over 4,000 years, and for good reason. The fruits are incredibly nutritious, high in vitamin C and antioxidants, and they can be eaten fresh, dried, or candied. Fresh jujubes taste like crisp apples with a hint of date flavor. Dried, they're chewy and sweet, tasting remarkably like dates. A mature tree can produce 40 to 100 pounds of fruit annually. Here's what makes jujube special. It laughs at drought, tolerates poor soil, handles heat that would kill most fruit trees, and has almost no pest or disease problems. The trees are slow to leaf out in spring, which helps them avoid late frost damage. They're also nearly maintenance-free. No spraying, minimal pruning, just harvest. Jujube trees grow 15 to 30 feet tall, depending on variety. They prefer full sun and well-drained soil, but they'll grow in clay, sand, or rocky ground that would discourage most crops. Some varieties have thorns, so choose improved cultivars like Li or Lang for easier harvesting. The trees are self-fertile, but produce better with a pollinator. Jujube remains relatively unknown in the West, simply because it doesn't fit the commercial fruit model. But for homesteaders in hot, dry climates, Jujube is a gift. Think of it as the fruit tree that gets more productive the more you ignore it. Number 6. The medieval treasure. Medlar is one of the strangest and most fascinating fruits you'll ever grow. Mespalis germanica is a small tree that produces fruits that must blet, basically partially decompose, before they're edible. Sounds weird, right? But the result is a unique dessert fruit with a flavor like spiced apple butter that was prized throughout medieval Europe. The fruits look like large brown rose hips with a distinctive open calyx end. You harvest them in late fall after frost, then store them in a cool place for a few weeks until they soften. The interior becomes creamy, sweet, and complex. Nothing else tastes quite like it. Traditional uses included eating fresh with a spoon, making preserves, or adding to desserts. Here's what makes Medlar worth growing. The tree is rugged, long-lived, and productive. It handles cold to zone 5, grows in various soils, and resists most pests. The spring flowers are beautiful, large, white, and rose-like. The tree stays small, 10 to 15 feet, with attractive twisted branches and excellent fall color. Once established, Medlar produces reliably for decades with minimal care. Modern gardeners often overlook Medlar simply because the fruit seems strange and unfamiliar. But for anyone interested in historical fruits or unique flavors, Medlar offers something no other crop can. You can make Medlar cheese, a traditional preserve that's like thick fruit paste, or simply enjoy the bledding fruit fresh. It's the fruit that taught medieval people patience and gave them winter desserts when nothing else was available. The tree that turns time into flavor. Number 7. Quince, the preserving powerhouse. Quince is where productivity meets preservation perfection. Cydonia oblonga is a small tree that produces very high yields of hard, aromatic fruits that transform into the finest jams, jellies, and pastes you'll ever taste. A single mature quince tree can produce 200 to 300 pounds of fruit in a good year. Let that sink in. The fruits are rock hard and astringent when fresh. Inedible, really. But cook them with sugar, and they turn into a glowing pink-orange preserve with a flavor that's like a cross between apples, pears, and roses. The aroma alone is intoxicating. Quince paste, called membrillo, is a traditional delicacy served with cheese throughout the Mediterranean. Here's what makes quince a homestead essential. These trees are tough as nails, disease-resistant, cold-hardy to zone 5, tolerant of heavy clay soil, and they live for 50 years or more. They require minimal pruning and almost no pest management. The spring blossoms are gorgeous, and the trees stay manageable at 12 to 15 feet. Plant it once and preserve for life. Traditional varieties like Champion and Pineapple are proven producers. The fruits store well for months in cool conditions, so you can process them over winter. Quince contains high levels of pectin, which means your preserves set perfectly every time without added pectin. The reason quince disappeared is simple. The modern food system wants fruits you can eat fresh. But for preserving, quince is unmatched. It's the tree that turns a single afternoon of harvest into a year's worth of gourmet preserves. Number 8. Aronia, the antioxidant factory. Aronia, also called chokeberry, is one of the most productive berry shrubs you can possibly grow. Aronia melanocarpa produces massive crops of small, dark purple berries that are off the charts high in antioxidants. We're talking about a single mature shrub yielding 20 to 30 pounds of berries, and they're so hardy they'll grow from zone 3 to zone 8. The berries are extremely tart and astringent fresh, hence the name chokeberry, but processed into juice, syrup, jam, or dried, they're nutritional powerhouses. Research shows Aronia has higher antioxidant levels than blueberries, cranberries, or even acai. Commercial production is exploding in Europe for health drinks and supplements. Here's what makes Aronia exceptional. These shrubs are virtually bulletproof. They tolerate poor soil, wet or dry conditions, extreme cold, and they have no serious pest or disease issues. The white spring flowers are attractive, the berries ripen in late summer, and the fall color is spectacular. They require zero inputs beyond occasional pruning to maintain shape. Plant Aronia in full sun for maximum production, though they'll tolerate part shade. Spacing of 4 to 6 feet works well for hedgerow production. The berries freeze beautifully, making storage simple. Mix Aronia juice with apple or grape juice to balance the tartness, or use it in smoothies for a serious nutritional boost. Aronia remains relatively unknown simply because the fresh berries aren't pleasant eating, but for juice production and health benefits, nothing beats it. Think of it as the shrub that turns neglect into nutrition and produces so reliably you'll run out of ways to use the harvest. Number 9. Sea buckthorn, the vitamin explosion. Sea buckthorn takes productivity to another level. Hippophae rhamnoides is a thorny shrub that produces vitamin-packed orange berries in quantities that seem impossible, up to 50 pounds per plant at maturity. And as a bonus, it fixes nitrogen in the soil, improving fertility for nearby plants. The berries are incredibly sour and tart, but loaded with vitamin C, vitamin E, omega fatty acids, and antioxidants. They're processed into juice, oil, jams, and health supplements. Sea buckthorn oil is valuable for skincare and medicinal use. This plant is a commercial crop in Russia, China, and Northern Europe for good reason. Here's what makes sea buckthorn remarkable. It tolerates terrible soil, sandy, rocky, poor, and actually prefers it. It handles salt spray, wind, drought, and cold down to zone 3. The roots fix nitrogen like a legume, enriching your soil while producing fruit. The plants are dioecious, meaning you need males and females, but one male pollinates several females. The thorns are serious, so wear heavy gloves and long sleeves when harvesting. Some growers freeze the branches before picking to make berries pop off easier. Others cut fruit-laden branches and freeze them whole, then strip berries indoors. The shrubs grow 6 to 12 feet and can be pruned as hedges. Sea buckthorn isn't widely grown in backyard settings, simply because harvest is challenging and the berries are intensely sour. But for serious homesteaders wanting nutrition, nitrogen fixation, and massive yields in poor soil, nothing else compares. It's the shrub that decided if it was going to grow somewhere difficult, it might as well produce more than anything else around it. Number 10. Goumi, the nitrogen-fixing fruit. Goumi is one of those plants that seems too good to be true. Elaeagnus multiflora is a shrub that produces sweet tart berries, fixes nitrogen in the soil, tolerates poor conditions, and produces heavy crops even when you're not paying attention. And the berries are genuinely delicious. Bright red, juicy, with a sweet tart flavor that needs no cooking. The shrubs are covered with silver-scaled leaves that shimmer in the breeze, and the small, fragrant flowers attract beneficial insects. By early summer, the branches are loaded with translucent red berries that taste like a cross between cherries and rhubarb. A mature Goumi can produce 8 to 15 pounds of fruit annually. Here's what makes Goumi special. As a member of the Elaeagnus family, it fixes nitrogen through root nodules, actually improving your soil while producing fruit. It tolerates partial shade, poor soil, drought once established, and has no significant pest problems. The plants are self-fertile, so you only need one, though more plants mean more fruit. Goumi grows 6 to 8 feet tall and wide, making it perfect for hedgerows or edible landscaping. The berries are excellent fresh, in jams, or dried. Some people ferment them into wine. Birds love Goumi, so harvest promptly when ripe or use netting. The reason Goumi isn't common is purely lack of awareness. Most nurseries don't carry it. But for permaculture plantings and low-maintenance production, Goumi delivers. It's the shrub that fixes your soil, feeds you, and looks beautiful doing it. Number 11. Honeyberry, the early season champion. Honeyberry, also called hascap, is the berry that ripens before strawberries even think about starting. Lonicera caerulea produces elongated blueberries that taste like a cross between blueberries and raspberries, and they're ready to harvest in late spring, sometimes even in May. Talk about extending your season. These shrubs are insanely cold hardy. They'll survive minus 40 degrees and actually require winter chill to produce well. They're perfect for northern gardeners who struggle with traditional fruits. The berries are high in antioxidants, vitamin C, and have a unique, complex flavor. Yields increase as plants mature, with established shrubs producing 5 to 10 pounds each. Here's what makes honeyberry valuable. They're among the first fruits to ripen, filling the gap before anything else is ready. They're easy to grow, requiring minimal care once established. They tolerate various soil types and prefer full sun, but handle part shade. And they're nearly pest-free. You need 2 different varieties for cross-pollination, so plant at least 2. The shrubs grow 4 to 6 feet tall and wide, making them suitable for small spaces. Harvest happens over several weeks as berries ripen. Fresh eating is excellent, or use them in baking, jams, and smoothies. Honeyberry is gaining popularity, but still relatively unknown outside cold climate regions. For northern growers especially, these are game changers. Think of them as the fruit that laughs at your harsh climate and gives you berries when everyone else is still waiting. Now, if you're starting to realize just how much productive potential is sitting in these perennial crops, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach other people who are tired of replanting the same annual crops every spring and ready to build a truly permanent food system. And if you haven't subscribed to Homestead Roots yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community of smart growers who value productivity over convention, and I'd love to have you as part of it. Let's keep going, because we're just getting to the really productive ones. Number 12, elderberry, the syrup machine. Elderberry is where medicinal and culinary production meet in one incredibly vigorous shrub. Sambucus nigra and canadensis produce huge clusters of dark purple berries that are famous for immune-supporting elderberry syrup, but they're also excellent in wine, jams, and baked goods. And the production is absolutely insane. A mature elderberry bush can produce 12 to 15 pounds of berries per plant per year. Plant a row of them, and you'll be processing berries for days. The white flower clusters in early summer are also edible, used for making elderflower cordial and fritters. This is a plant that gives you 2 harvests. Here's what makes elderberry exceptional. These shrubs grow fast. You'll get fruit in the 2nd or 3rd year. They're adaptable to wet or dry soils, tolerate part shade though they produce best in sun, and they respond hard to cutting back, producing vigorous new growth loaded with flowers and fruit. They're also cold hardy to zone 3. Elderberries grow 8 to 12 feet tall and sucker freely, forming dense clumps. You can manage them as individual shrubs or let them fill in as hedgerows. Improved varieties like York, Nova, and Johns produce larger berries and heavier yield. The berries must be cooked. Raw elderberries can cause digestive upset, but cooked into syrup, jam, or wine, they're safe and delicious. Elderberry got overlooked in commercial production because the berries are delicate and don't ship well. But for home production, especially for making immune-supporting syrup, elderberry is unbeatable. It's the shrub that turns your backyard into a pharmacy and winery combined. Number 13, mulberry, the abundance tree. Mulberry is where productivity becomes almost absurd. Morus species are fast-growing fruit trees that can produce insane quantities once mature. We're talking 100 to 300 pounds of fruit from a single tree in a good year, and they keep doing it for decades. The berries look like elongated blackberries and taste sweet with a mild, pleasant flavor. They ripen over several weeks in early summer, and when the tree is in full production, you'll find yourself standing under a canopy of fruit, wondering how to possibly use it all. Fresh eating, jams, pies, wine, dried fruit, feeding chickens. You'll find uses. Here's what makes mulberry special. These trees grow fast, sometimes 6 feet in a single season when young. They're adaptable to various soils, drought tolerant once established, and they have almost no pest or disease issues. Birds love the fruit, which is a downside if you want it all, but many growers appreciate the wildlife value. Some people plant mulberries specifically to distract birds from other crops. There are white, red, and black mulberries, referring to fruit color. Black mulberries, Morus nigra, have the best flavor, but are less cold hardy. White mulberries, Morus alba, are extremely vigorous, and red mulberries, Morus rubra, are native to North America. Illinois everbearing and Pakistan are popular cultivars. The trees can get large, 20 to 40 feet, so plan accordingly. The fruit drops as it ripens, staining everything below, so site your mulberry thoughtfully. Some growers spread tarps or sheets to catch falling fruit. Mulberry disappeared from suburban landscapes because of the mess and the fact that male trees produce heavy pollen. But for actual food production, mulberry is a powerhouse. It's the tree that redefines what abundant means. Number 14, pawpaw, the native custard fruit. This is the one I mentioned at the beginning, the tree that can produce for over a century. Pawpaw, Asimina triloba, is a small understory tree native to eastern North America that produces large, custard-like fruits with a tropical flavor. And it's increasingly popular among homesteaders and fruit enthusiasts who want something genuinely unique. Pawpaw fruits taste like a combination of banana, mango, and melon, with a creamy texture that's completely unlike any other temperate fruit. They ripen in fall, and a mature tree can produce 50 to 100 pounds of fruit. The trees are also beautiful, with large tropical-looking leaves and maroon flowers in spring. Here's what makes pawpaw remarkable. These trees are long-lived. They'll produce for 50 to 100 years or more. They're native to North America, so they're perfectly adapted to the climate from zones 5 to 9. They have no serious pest problems because the leaves contain natural insecticides, and they grow well in partial shade, making them perfect for forest gardens or understory planting. Pawpaws need cross-pollination, so plant at least 2 different varieties. The trees grow 15 to 30 feet tall. They prefer rich, well-drained soil and consistent moisture, though they tolerate a range of conditions. Improved cultivars like Sunflower, Shenandoah, and Susquehanna have been selected for larger fruits and better flavor. The fruits don't store long, only a few days at room temperature, up to a week refrigerated, so they're impossible to commercialize. But for home growing, pawpaw offers flavors you simply can't buy. Plant them now, and your grandchildren will be harvesting fruit from the same trees. It's the tree that connects generations through flavor. Number 15. American persimmon, the frost-sweet survivor. American persimmon is the tree that turns patience into sweetness. Diospyros virginiana produces fruits that are powerfully astringent until fully ripe after frost, then transform into incredibly sweet, date-like fruits with rich flavor. And these trees are productive for decades, often 50 years or more. The fruits are smaller than Asian persimmons, but intensely flavorful when ripe. You'll know they're ready when they're soft and almost translucent. A mature tree can produce 75 to 150 pounds of fruit in a good year. The trees are also beautiful, with attractive bark, good fall color, and an elegant form. Here's what makes American persimmon special. These trees are native to the eastern U.S. and are incredibly hardy. Cold tolerance to zone 5, drought tolerance once established, and they grow in poor soil that would discourage most fruit trees. They have deep taproots that make them nearly indestructible once established, and they live for generations with zero care. American persimmons are dioecious, so you need male and female trees, or plant a self-fertile cultivar. The trees can grow 30 to 60 feet tall if unpruned, but you can keep them smaller with pruning. Improved varieties like Meter, Proc, and Yates have been selected for better fruit and cold hardiness. The fruits are excellent fresh after frost, dried like dates, or used in puddings, breads, and traditional American persimmon pudding. They were a staple for Native Americans and early settlers. American persimmon got overlooked when Asian persimmons became commercially available, but for permanent productive trees in challenging conditions, native persimmon is unmatched. Plant it for your great-grandchildren. It's the tree that teaches you that good things come to those who wait, and to their descendants. Number 16. Loquat, the early spring producer. Warm climates. For those in warmer zones, loquat is a gift. Areobotria japonica is an evergreen small tree that produces early spring fruit, often March or April, when almost nothing else is ripe. The fruits are orange-yellow, taste like a cross between apricots and mangoes, and a mature tree can produce 50 to 100 pounds in a season. Loquat is beautiful year-round, with large tropical-looking leaves and fragrant white flowers that bloom in fall or winter. The fruits ripen in clusters and are excellent fresh or made into jams and pies. They're popular in Asia and the Mediterranean, but underutilized in suitable climates in North America. Here's what makes Loquat valuable. It's evergreen, providing year-round beauty and shade. It tolerates various soils, handles drought once established, and has few pest problems. The early fruit timing fills a gap when fresh fruit is scarce, and it's relatively compact, growing 15 to 25 feet, perfect for smaller yards. Loquat is hardy in zones 8 to 10, though some varieties tolerate brief cold snaps to 15 degrees. The trees are self-fertile, but produce better with cross-pollination. Popular varieties include Gold Nugget, Champagne, and Big Jim. The fruits bruise easily and don't ship well, which is why you rarely see them in stores. But for home growing in warm climates, Loquat is excellent. It's the tree that gives you fresh fruit when everyone else is still planting. Number 17. Feijoa, the fragrant multitasker. Feijoa, also called pineapple guava, is one of those plants that does multiple jobs beautifully. Acaceloiana is an evergreen shrub or small tree that produces fragrant, tropical-flavored fruits, beautiful flowers with edible petals, and makes an excellent hedge or screen. Talk about multifunctional. The fruits are green, egg-sized, with a flavor that's like a combination of pineapple, guava, and mint. They ripen in fall and drop when ready. A mature Feijoa can produce 50 to 200 pounds of fruit depending on size and variety. The flowers are spectacular, white petals with red stamens, and the petals taste sweet and fruity. Here's what makes Feijoa special. It's evergreen, providing year-round structure and beauty. It tolerates poor soil, handles drought well once established, and thrives in coastal conditions, including salt spray. It's also relatively pest-free. The plants are self-fertile, but produce better with a pollinator. They're hardy in zones 8 to 11. Feijoa grows 10 to 15 feet tall and wide, or you can prune it as a hedge. Popular varieties include Coolidge, Nazimets, and Mammoth. The fruits are excellent fresh, in smoothies, jams, or even fermented into unique ciders and wines. Feijoa remains relatively unknown outside of California and New Zealand, but for suitable climates, it's exceptional. It's the plant that decided being productive wasn't enough. It would be beautiful and useful in multiple ways. Number 18. Perennial leek/elephant garlic, the forever allium. Now we're shifting from fruit to vegetables, but vegetables that act like perennials. Perennial leek, Allium ampeloprosum, forms clumps that you can harvest from for years. This includes elephant garlic, which is actually a type of leek, not a true garlic. Plant it once, and it keeps coming back. These plants produce both harvestable stems similar to leeks and large, mild garlic-like bulbs. A single clump will multiply over time, giving you more plants and more harvests each year. The flavor is milder than regular garlic, making it perfect for dishes where you want garlic flavor without intensity. Here's what makes perennial leeks valuable. They're truly perennial. Plant once and harvest for 5, 10, 15 years or more. They tolerate various soils and climates, require minimal care, and multiply naturally. You can harvest some stems and bulbs while leaving others to regrow. They're also beautiful, with tall flower stalks that attract beneficial insects. Plant divisions in fall or early spring. Space them 12 inches apart and let them establish. After the first year, you can start harvesting. Take what you need, but leave enough plants to keep the clump going. The stems are used like leeks, the bulbs like mild garlic. Perennial leeks got overlooked simply because annual vegetables dominate home gardens. But for permanent plantings that produce year after year, they're perfect. Think of them as the alliums that decided annual was for quitters. Number 19. Good King Henry, the perennial green. Good King Henry is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables in Europe, and it's genuinely perennial. Bleedum bonus henricus produces spinach-like greens and asparagus-like shoots every spring, then keeps producing leaves through the season. Plant it once and harvest for years. The young shoots in spring can be blanched and cooked like asparagus. They're tender and delicious. As the season progresses, the leaves can be harvested and cooked like spinach. The plant is high in iron, vitamins, and minerals. It's been cultivated since medieval times, and was a staple green before spinach became common. Here's what makes Good King Henry special. It's truly perennial, coming back stronger each year. It tolerates partial shade, poor soil, and cold, hardy to zone 5 or even colder. Once established, it requires almost no care. You just harvest and enjoy. The plants grow 1 to 2 feet tall and spread slowly into clumps. Plant divisions or seeds in spring. Space plants 12 inches apart. The first year, let them establish without heavy harvesting. After that, cut young shoots in spring, like asparagus. Then harvest leaves as needed through summer. The leaves are best cooked, as they contain some oxalic acid that's reduced by cooking. Good King Henry disappeared simply because commercial agriculture focused on annual crops. But for perennial vegetable gardens, it's a staple. It's the green that ancient gardeners knew, and modern gardeners are rediscovering. Number 20, Jerusalem artichoke / sunchoke, the unstoppable tuber. And here we are at number 20, the one I saved for last, because it represents the ultimate in productive perennial crops. Maybe too productive. Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke, Helianthus tuberosus, is a perennial tuber that you plant once, and it comes back so hard you might regret it. This is the crop where your problem won't be getting it to grow, it'll be containing it. Jerusalem artichokes are native to North America and were cultivated by Native Americans long before Europeans arrived. The tubers taste nutty and sweet, similar to water chestnuts when raw, and become creamier when cooked. They're high in inulin, a prebiotic fiber that's excellent for gut health. A small patch can produce 50 to 100 pounds of tubers per year. Here's what makes sunchokes remarkable and challenging. They grow 6 to 10 feet tall, producing cheerful yellow sunflowers in late summer. The tubers multiply underground aggressively. Leave one small piece in the ground, and it will regrow. They tolerate terrible soil, drought, flood, neglect, and still produce massive crops. They're hardy to zone 3 and will grow almost anywhere. Plant tubers in spring, spacing 12 to 18 inches apart. They'll grow into a tall stand by summer. Harvest tubers in fall after the first frost, or leave them in the ground and harvest as needed through winter. They store best right where they grew. The tubers are delicious roasted, mashed, in soups, or even pickled. Jerusalem artichoke got a bad reputation because people planted them without understanding how vigorous they are. Plant them where you can contain them, along fence lines, in dedicated beds with barriers, or in areas where you don't mind them spreading. Some people dedicate entire sections to sunchokes for reliable, permanent food production. The reason I put this last is simple. This is the crop that shows you what truly permanent food production looks like. You plant it once, and 20 years later, it's still feeding you, whether you remembered to tend it or not. It's the crop that doesn't ask for permission, it just produces. It's also a reminder that with perennial crops, you're not just planting for next year, you're planting for the next generation. If you enjoyed this deep dive into productive perennial crops, and you learned something that'll change the way you garden, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and helps other people discover these incredible crops. Drop a comment below and tell me which crop you're most excited to plant. Are you team fruit trees? Team berries? Team perennial vegetables? I read every comment, and I love hearing from you. And if you haven't subscribed to Homestead Roots, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.